The final presentation now is Kevin Moran. As we know, Kevin is dairy farming in County Galway. And his topic of his presentation is access to finance for young and expanding farmers. Kevin himself is an example of how this has been done. At the age of 23, he's already milking 220 of his own cows on a leased farm operation. So I think he's extremely well qualified for the topic. Kevin.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Moran. Just to give a bit of an introduction to myself, first of all, I'm from County Mayo. Still pretty sore about that. I'm 23. So I guess my home farm, I grew up on a dairy farm, but it was never going to be a viable option. So I decided to go down the leasing route. It seemed like there was a far higher rate of return from it. And so when the opportunity arose when I was 19 to lease a farm from my uncle in County Galway, I went and leased it. There was 36 hectares and I started milking 72 cows in 2013. Opportunities have come up around me, and since then I've grown to 220 cows, and everything is set to go to 300 next year. I was lucky enough to have been awarded Student of the Year in 2013, and most recently, as pointed out by Bill, I was the 2016 Young Farmer of the Year. Just to give a brief insight into my own Nuffield journey and where it took me. Took me all around the world: UK, France, Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, Italy, USA, Kenya, South Africa. There's actually a couple of countries missing there. So that's what Nuffield is. It's a fantastic experience, and it was a game changer for me. This is when I was in Kenya, believe it or not. This is typical Mayo man. This is when 5 fully grown men got beaten in a game of basketball by a bunch of 12-year-old schoolgirls. So we want to move on from there. So why this topic? It's quite close to home in that back in 2013 when I was leasing a block, I had no collateral. I didn't own any land, and there was all these tax-free incentives for landowners to go and lease their farms out, but for young farmers coming in that don't own land, there was a major issue in terms of having the collateral to go and leverage the funds. I got around it by getting a guarantor eventually, but I was refused 9 times. Young farmers are a minority. Less than 6% of farmers are under the age. There's 5.7% of farmers under the age of 35. There's more farmers over the age of 80 than there are under the age of 35. And I think it is getting worse. With every year, the average age of the Irish farmer increases by 6 months. It stands at 59 at the moment. We have fantastic initiatives around long-term tax-free land leasing and in a quota-free environment. Everything is there. We must now give the tools to our younger farmers, to the financial tools, to go and utilise these opportunities. My report focused on 3 main areas in terms of finance. Banks, alternative finance options, and then at state level, policy level, what needs to change. So if we take banks first, and believe it or not, a lot of it is good. My report found that a lot of it is good. There is no shortage of capital. There is sufficient capital there across Europe, domestically. There is no deficit in capital available. There is, within the banking sector, I think they have learned lessons. There's responsible lending. And it's important as a young farmer up here saying that we need more accessible finance for young farmers. It comes with a warning sign, obviously. You cannot over-leverage yourself. You must be responsible. And it's something that Bill said to me 2 years ago was more businesses die of indigestion than starvation. And it's really resonated with me, because if you try to take on too much too quick as a young farmer, you introduce a lot of risk to your business. I think our banks are adhering to that. They are trying to get into the area of cash flow lending, and it's great to see. There's a renewed sense of confidence since 2009, 2010. There is a bit of context required in my own story when I was applying for finance in 2013, and really researching this topic has driven it home to me in that a lot of it I have to take responsibility for, because when you're applying for finance, you need a solid business plan. You need 24, 36 months of realistic cash flow projections. You must have absolute clarity of your business and what you're trying to achieve, and have certain KPIs, target a timeline for your key performance indicators of when you're going to achieve everything. That was something that I did not have, and it's something that a lot of young farmers maybe don't realise when they're approaching banks. So when you hear about applications being declined, it's not necessarily always the bank's fault. Within the dairy sector, economically it stands up. There is excellent repayment capacity within the dairy sector. The issues I found were around securitization of livestock. If you look at asset finance, if you look at land purchase, terms, interest rates within reason, it's all pretty good. There's no real issues there. Around securitization, around livestock lending, we are very much behind in Ireland. And from the outset, something that was really being dished around was chattel mortgages. It's the age-old argument and why we don't have them. And I will touch on it towards the end of the report. So these are the issues. If you're a farmer and you fall into any of these categories, if you're a landless farmer, if you're trying to grow wealth via livestock, that's where the issue lies. And for me, lending in livestock is a no-brainer, because, as was pointed out to me, 4 legs appreciate, 4 wheels depreciate. And it's actually a lot easier to get finance for the tractor than what it is for the cow at the moment. When I looked at alternative financing options, which was the second part, EIIS is a vital stepping stone to banking finance. EIIS is a revamped business expansion scheme, employment investment incentive scheme. You can, private investors through a designated investment fund or family members can invest in your farm business and achieve 30% tax relief. And after a 4-year term, if you have proven that you have employed somebody as a result of that investment, they get an additional 10% tax relief. It is a very affordable form of finance for a young farmer starting out. It's scalable, which was the issue with almost all the other alternative financing options that I looked at, in terms of dairying is very capital intensive. If you look at greenfields site costings of touching on €5,000 a cow, all the other alternative financing options fell short of achieving a reasonable sized herd in terms of the scale that they offered. EIIS ticks that box. It's affordable. The 4-year term is unrealistic, and this is where it can be an ideal opportunity for a young farmer to create an image of themselves to a bank, to paint a picture to the bank and build a track record of 4 years. Milkflex from GII is another fantastic initiative, and it stacks up. It needs to be replicated by all our co-ops. GII suppliers, I think, account for 17% of dairy farmers. We need this available to almost all young dairy farmers around the country. So it needs to be replicated by other co-ops. There is a small royalty to be paid to GII if other co-ops want to replicate it. So as I've done this report, I found that our co-ops do have a major role to play in young farmers accessing finance and around securitisation. In Australia, there's a cow leasing entity, Cowbank. Over 5 years, the cows are repaid, and I mean the stats back up for themselves. Since being established in 1999, it has leased 48,000 cows to 250 farmers, and it is farmer owned, farmer operated. Private investment was something that really seemed quite interesting, and something that kept popping up in a lot of interviews. If you look at interest rates around Europe, look at the Eurobar, it's gone negative. Bank of Ireland, I think from next month, are placing a negative interest rate on deposits over 10 million. Private investors, the capital is there. The amount of money that's out there, as pointed out to me, is phenomenal, and so few people control it. the capital is there. Private investors are looking for a home to make a return on their money. What we lack, we can generate a return at farm level in Ireland. Dairy farmers can achieve a very high rate of return when you take profits, asset appreciation, and cash reserves into account. We can achieve very good returns. Investors have money on the other side and they want to achieve returns. What we lack is the intermediaries, the link between farmer and private investor. This again is where maybe our co-ops can provide that service. At state level, something that kept popping up, and I'll allude to it in the next slide, is by investing in farmers and investing in agriculture, what does that do for our rural economy? At a time when urbanisation and net migration are big issues. Financial instruments, and this is, I think, something that has actually, as of the budget on Tuesday, has come into effect in low-cost financing for farmers from the EIB. Commissioner Hogan has set aside as financial instruments is an initiative within Europe to channel funds, low-cost funds, to each of the member states, and the member states can set up in place whatever structure they deem necessary within their state. When I travel to USA, they have guarantee schemes via their farm service agency. What that is if you're a farmer and you get declined finance from banks or Farm Credit Bureau, you can apply then to the Farm Service Agency. It is funds from the Federal Reserve that they will lend to you, you get up and running, and the overall aim of it is not to be a competitor to banks, because that's not within any government's interest. The aim of guarantee schemes and the loan schemes under the FSA in America is to graduate farmers onto banking finance. So after 4 or 5 years, when they prove that this farmer is reliable, has met all repayments, they are then graduated onto banking finance. And again, chattel mortgages. If I was to stand up here and say we need chattel mortgages, I feel I would not have given value to my scholarship. What we need, chattel mortgages is almost step number 10. Step number 1 is formulating a committee with a representative from each of the relevant stakeholders across the industry to look at how we can offer chattel mortgages. Chattel mortgages at the moment are not on offer. Our banks instead decide to offer unsecured funds of up to 80,000 and off the record 100,000. I think rather than offering chattel mortgages, that's what they offer. The issue with chattel mortgages is not actually with our banks, it's the legislation around it and how they can secure it. At the moment they can secure a chattel, but it goes through all the local circuit courts, and it is very, very complex. You look at things like the CNMS, or look at car finance and how that's offered. We can replicate that via livestock. That is as close to a silver bullet to this topic as what we're going to get. But I think to stand up here and say we need chattel mortgages is, I wouldn't be giving justice to the report. We need to, first of all, set up a committee with a representative from all the relevant stakeholders and formulate a submission as to what we need to change and give that to the Minister. We need funded mentorship. When you look at young farmers, this report is saying we need access to finance. Access to finance means you're going to have debt, and that does not suit everyone. Having debt comes with a burden that you carry every day. And I think you need a very high level of management to repay that debt, obviously. But you look at how young farmers learn most, and it's through exposure. Exposure to the better farmers, exposure to the top 10%, and that is what Nuffield has given me personally. And I think funded mentorship would be a very valuable tool in all of this. As I alluded to, net migration, if you look at this map and rural Ireland, what farming can do for it, but areas in red are the areas that lost over 3,000 people from 2011 to 2016. And look at Dublin, the only area to have gained more than 3,000 people. Is it any wonder they're winning All Ireland? Ballyraggett is an example Matt Ryan had pointed out to me early on in my report research of Ballyragget, 79 dairy farmers within a 5-mile radius of Ballyragget supplying 27 million litres. And the estimated GII increase is 63% of expansion in milk, which is at 30 centilitres, 5.1 million. Now, Ballyragget has a population of 1,451 people. If you apply an economic multiplier of over 2 to that, you're circulating over 10 million in such a small community, a small village that has a post office, a pub, a super value, typical rural Ireland. This is the job creation of the food harvest if expansion targets are met. Joe was telling me I'm out of time, so I just want to say thanks to a number of people. I could forget a few, so apologies. I'd like to thank Nofield, first and foremost, for giving me this opportunity. Bill in particular for taking a punt on me. Really appreciate it. I'd like to thank my mentor, Jeff Dooley. Jeff has been incredible over the past 2 years. It's not been easy, but Jeff has been invaluable to me personally and someone who I've come to respect massively. I'd like to thank Arrivo for their ongoing support. I'd like to thank my fellow scholars. I'd like to thank Sean Coughlin and Brian Reedy for helping me in the process leading up to applying for Nofield and coaching me. I'd like to thank my GFP group. I'd like to thank Matt Ryan. There's a list of probably 20 other people which I'll thank personally, and thanks to you for your time. Thank you.